Announcements here. First of all, the music can come down a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Who is that? Oh, that's you. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So we have an Instagram, we have a Discord chat, and we have email messages that Josiah sends whenever he feels lonely. So join all of those up for that. That's how we communicate with each other. Instagram, we post a lot of stuff about Wednesday nights and stuff like that, sermon reels, all sorts of stuff. So join all of those. Next year, our church is starting a New Testament in a year. And we're going to talk a lot about this next year. Okay, cool. Don't miss out. Don't need to do anything right now. Just know that it's coming. All right, that's what that message was. All right, December 21st is our Christmas party. It's going to be here. We're going to be playing Family Feud, Christmas Family Feud, Christmas Bingo, karaoke, and food. It's going to be very chill compared to our fall party. So if the fall party wasn't your thing, please come to this. This is very chill. You get to eat and just highlighting young adults. So this coming weekend, we have a kind of a young adults takeover at the Olmsted Falls campus. So we are looking for participation. So it's if you have come to one of our basement worship nights, it's kind of a similar setting where we are doing the same thing a similar way on Sunday morning church. So the first one is going to be this Sunday at Olmsted Falls. Next one is going to be here at our campus, all three services. And we need participation. So we'll have couches on stage or near stage. We need young adults. That's you guys, to come and sit and participate and worship and maybe even dance. Should we allow that? Yeah, dancing too. So we will have to approve before you dance. So I'm just kidding. So because it's a young adults takeover, we want participation in almost every area of the church. So the main one is a greeter. So if you'd like to be a greeter during the service, please sign up at the QR code. And that's it. Oh, tomorrow rehearsal, right? So they can come. So we are having rehearsal for this service tomorrow at Olmsted Falls at 6:30. So if you want to come hang out and see what's happening and like how cool it is, and maybe you want to feel a little bit comfortable on Sunday, you want to come and sit while we worship and stuff, rehearse, please come and do that. All right, cool. That's all the announcements I have. Icebreaker, what's the worst Christmas gift you've ever received? You have your entire life to go through. And if you're feeling any kind of animosity that you haven't forgiven, go ahead and talk amongst the group. And when you're ready, send somebody up here, we can share. At least pick two people from your tables. So two.
Euphoria's gone. It's time to move on. I have to believe we can change. When the notes come out wrong, stop singing along. We can't be the same old thing. It's New Year's. I'm taking the past years off the wall. It's New Year's. I'm coming.
All right, so I need 2 people from each table. Let's pick some winners. Let's go. Two people, please. Ariana, come up. 2 people from each table, please. Come on. I got 2 people. Yeah. Coming up. Well, that's fine. I just need 2 people. This is going to be funny. All right. I need 1 more person from that table. Okay, I need 1 more person from that table. Let's go. All right. 2 people from each table. All right. Kendall, you want to come up? Let's go. You asked me to go.
Why not? Just start talking.
You can come sit down.
That's okay.
All right, let's go. Brooke, you should come up. No? Oh, come on. Ariana.
Good gift. I like socks. Except there were these baby socks that wouldn't even fit my feet. I'd be lucky if it like fit my pinky.
All right. That's good stuff right there. All right. What's your name? Natalie? All right. Natalie had mentioned that worst gift she got was a mug that had Jesus on there, and it said Jesus shaves. And she said that was the worst Christmas present she got. And as far as I said nothing. I mean, that's the worst I got. But, all right.
And she got me something called the Vegan Bible. And I'm like, what's this? It has everything in the Bible, but they cut out everything that got eaten. So for the Last Supper, instead of like bread, so she's like vegan, it was gluten-free and dairy-free bread. Which I'm like, one, I don't think someone could rewrite the Bible like that. And if it was any bread, it was wheat bread and not vegan bread. So that was the worst gift. And now because vegans don't like recycle, I just burned it. It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years. Don't worry. She's in Germany. She doesn't know.
All right, cool. That's scary.
So my name's Danny. The worst one I got was a blue Honda Civic, and I wanted a red one. Just kidding. My worst one was a flashlight, and the batteries didn't even work. So.
And hi, Steven. So the worst gift I got by proxy, so it actually wasn't to me, was a glass orb for my brother. And we didn't know what to make of it. It was just a glass orb, and it was like the lamest gift ever. So yeah.
That does it, I think. That's the worst gift, I think, so far. The glass orb that doesn't do anything. All right, cool. Are they supposed to do something? Like, I don't even know. Okay, I don't play with orbs, so I don't know. What's the worst? As a kid, always when I get a T-shirt, they always get the size wrong because I was always growing, like, heavier. And so T-shirts were like socks. It's a horrible thing ever. And I would tell you, like, you want to preach now. No, I'm done. I can do a stand-up thing here.
Stand up, preaching, whatever you want. I
You
got
don't-
one.
okay.
I got one on my face, attached to me. That was fun. My worst? My worst was my grandma. When I was like 14, I wrote my grandma a letter, which was out of the ordinary, I guess. None of her grandkids really wrote her letters. And she really loved that. And so for Christmas, she got my brother like $30 cash and my sister like $30 cash. And she got me envelopes and stamps to write her more letters. And I was like, I would have highly preferred $30 cash, but that was a bad gift. Let me pray for us, and then we're going to get into it. God, I'm grateful for your presence among us. thank you for bringing all these young adults here tonight to get to know each other better, to make some friends, to get to know you better. And I pray that they would leave with a sense of your love, your purpose for their lives, and that you really care about them. Thanks for protecting us and drawing us close. I pray that this Christmas season would be really rich, that we would have really good conversations with people, that we would stop a couple times when we're hearing Christmas songs, the good ones that are full of truth, and we would think about the truth of what you've done in this season. And I just pray, Lord, that you would draw our hearts closer to you. Night. Last week we did some Christmas reflections, and it was different. None of you who are here were scared away, which is good, but we spent quite a bit of time in just silence, reflecting on Scripture. It was really cool. We had a great time. I had a great time. Did anybody else enjoy that? I'm sure a few others enjoyed it. It was really cool to see the way that God spoke to people. What we did is we asked the Lord to speak through his word, and then we shared what he said, and it was amazing to see God was speaking to you guys. I knew he would. I knew he'd show up and speak. But to hear the kinds of things that you guys were receiving from just reading Scripture together was really amazing to me. Some really deep insights about God's grace, about God's the way he's like the light to us and reveals. Give you guys some chance to interact, and at the end we'll have a lot of discussion. And I want us to make sure that we're thinking deeply about Christmas, because it's in the top two holidays of the year. Christmas and Easter are the richest holidays, where we can, if we take it seriously and we really think about it, we can grow and we can learn a lot about God. And it's fun that we get to do it together. It's one thing that we do in community, that when you're like leaning in, and when in community together you're leaning into the truth of what we're celebrating, it can be really, really rich. Your friendships can grow with each other, because you know when you have like a common experience, it really bonds you together. You go traveling with somebody, or you celebrate something with somebody. It really bonds you together. Well, if we can see these, a lot of us are here for that. We're here to grow closer to people our age, or your age. I just turned 35 all of a sudden, so I can say that less and less as the years go by, huh? But so I want us to think deeply about Christmas. Before we dive all the way in theologically, I do have a couple questions that I would love for you guys to answer. And it might not even, you might not know why I'm asking them, but by the end you will. So here's the first question. Somebody's got a microphone, maybe even two. Yeah, there's two microphones. I'm going to pose to you some questions. Raise your hand if you want to answer, and somebody will hand you a microphone. First question: how would you feel if someone that you either was a close friend or someone that you looked up to randomly showed up at your door, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey, I'm coming in, I want to hang out"? At any time, any point in the day. You weren't ready, you weren't warned. Some people love that, some people hate that. I want to know what you guys think. A spontaneous visit from a friend or somebody that you look up to shows up at your door, unannounced, and invites himself in. How do you feel? Elias. He's a robot right there.
Whoa.
Oh, it's loud.
Okay. I really love it when people just show up.
Okay.
I was born and raised in that, and it breaks up the day. And it's like, well, I had to do laundry, but now I don't. So people, I can come in. They can come in. I'll entertain them. We'll eat, whatever. I love it when people just show up unannounced.
Awesome.
As long as I didn't just get out of the shower or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Very cool. Anybody agree, disagree, feel the same way, feel the opposite?
I would honestly be very excited about it, because I love when that happens, because it doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But my mom, she would be like, the house is a mess. Oh my gosh, don't let anyone in. Lock the doors.
Yeah.
Because she just doesn't want anyone to come in when it's not clean. She wants to be like, we actually live good. We don't live messy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. That's funny. All right, Amy's got something to say.
Thank you. I would be kind of excited, but also be like, thanks for ruining my day. Now I have to have fun with you. Thanks.
Nice.
There's a reason why I have a screen door outside my front door. and that's locked, so people can't come.
And cute and fluffy.
We love Asha.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of like when people come in unannounced, especially my friends, because I've actually had an experience where my friends try to forcefully break into my house
Okay.
out of all good nature and just say pop in and say hi. So yeah, it's kind of nice when people come to your house unannounced and just pop in and say hi.
Nice.
I'd be probably terrified because my friends should know better to text first because I'm rarely home. And if they don't and they show up randomly, I can only assume they want something from me.
Or they're trying to prank you or something.
I used to hate it, and then I learned to like it due to like COVID because I have a cousin who lives next door.
Okay.
So like we would randomly just walk in, and I'm like, if you're friends with the person, you should love it. But if you hate it, that means you.
You know, I was in the middle of my game, and then you just show up out of nowhere. I'll put down the controller. But no, I'm kidding about that. You know, I guess it'd be cool. You know, if I even had some friend like that, which I don't anyway, because I work all the time anyway. So
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty rare this
Thank
day and
you.
age. Does it happen very much to any of you? Like, where people just pop in? No. I think, like, our parents growing up, it was probably pretty normal, but... Because you couldn't text first, right? Cool. Anybody else? Steven? Yeah.
Now, I haven't had this experience myself, but I may or may not have done it to my best friend once.
Yeah.
I was in the area. I didn't have a chance to text him. Just ring his doorbell, and he's like, "What on earth are you doing here?" But
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm in the area." So it's basically one way or another. But I honestly, to answer the actual question at hand, if it was like a spur of the moment where it's like they don't have anything to do and I'm like, I'm not busy, I'd be fine with it. And still a good time no matter what.
That's good. Cool. Anybody else burning to answer? Okay, yeah, one more. Abe, you got it.
For me, it really depends. If I'm in the middle of something, I don't really want to be bothered and taken away from that. Generally, though, pretty welcoming guy. You know, come in,
Yeah.
hang out with you.
Kind of depends. Yeah, so it happens to you sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Just if I'm in the middle of something, I don't really want to be bothered.
Yeah.
Like cleaning or chores
Yeah.
or whatever.
What if they come to help?
I'm usually a solo guy when it comes to stuff.
Let me jump in and see if the next question will make more sense in a little bit. So, last week what we were meditating on was John chapter 1. So you can skip the next question and we'll jump to John chapter 1. And if you were here, you know these words pretty well by now because we read them 3 times and focused and prayed about them. But it's good to remember them again anyway. So we started with John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. If you've never heard that before, it's confusing. You're like, what does this capital W word mean? It means Jesus. So, and the book of John makes it really clear that they're talking about Jesus when it talks about the Word. And so it's saying Jesus was in the beginning with God, and everything that was created through Jesus. It's a theological truth that is really amazing to think about. The Jesus that walked this earth was there at creation. And then it says in John 1:14, that Word, Jesus, the Creator, the one who made it all, became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We've seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. And so, like, God, who made it all, entered into what he made and became one of his own creation. It's mind-blowing. To think about that is like it's impossible to fully grasp. It's hard to understand, but it's also a beautiful truth that God would enter into his own story and become one of us. Not fully, because he's Trinity, and so just the Jesus person of the Trinity. It's a truth. When Jesus became flesh and made his dwelling among us, he revealed to us what God is like. It goes on to say that no one has ever seen God, but now that Jesus has come in the flesh, now we've seen his glory, full of grace and truth, it says again. And so what it's saying in the book of John, and we went over this a little bit last week, is that Jesus is actually revealing to us what God is like when he took on flesh. Jesus is showing us in a way that we can see with our eyes and understand and hear with ears what God is actually like. It was a message that was so important that it had to be hand-delivered. Did anybody watch the Pepsi Where Is My Jet documentary that's on Netflix right now? Anybody watch that? Oh, one person, two people? Okay. It's kind of cool. This probably won't spoil it to tell a little $100,000 check to Pepsi Corporation. And so there's this guy who wrote the check. This is young, like 20-year-old guy who's, I won't tell you the whole story. Anyways, basically he has to get a $700,000 check to Pepsi. And so to do it, he had to fly to Florida and then pick up the check from the guy who was financing him, and then fly to Middle America to this address because you're supposed to send the money in, but with $700,000, he wasn't going to put that in the mail, right? This had to be hand-delivered because that's a whole lot of money. And so he flies to Florida, gets the check, gets on the airplane to the address somewhere in Middle America, I think it was Kansas or something, and gets to the address, and it's actually just a post office. And so he did all this, and it's just like, now he's just in a post office, not even like, he can't go to somebody's desk and hand them, yeah? This is a trip to their door instead of put it in the mail. So still it's a plausible thing. And so it was a P.O. box at the post office, but the post office was closed. And so there was the little slot that you could put the mail into to deliver it and just hope that it ends up in the right spot. I guess the story goes that there was actually a worker who was leaving or something, and he was able to get it in the P.O. box, and all was good. But it was too important to deliver the message through somebody else. It had to be hand-delivered in person. Well, Jesus, when he wanted to reveal to us what God is like, that's kind of like, it was a message that was too precious to be sent just through prophets, just through written words that we have of the Old Testament. It was too important, and it was actually too complicated too, because the word, the message that Jesus was revealing, hand deliver this message to the world and say, look, I want to show you what God is like, full of grace and truth. And he did that by being born in a manger and then being raised like any other kid and learning a craft and growing in stature and maturity, it says, and then walking around, and then he was tempted, and then he was baptized, and then he walked around and taught people. And he taught people what God requires. And he taught people what God wants of us. And he taught with such clarity what it means to follow him. And then he went around and he showed people what God is like by healing them, right? All the sick people came to him and he healed them. Dead people he was brought to and they were raised back to life. And he said, I am the resurrection and the life. He showed people what God is like. He showed them what God is like with his character too. He cares so much that he goes straight to them and he doesn't mind being ridiculed for it. And so he showed with all of his actions, with all of his teachings, with his whole life, the ways that he carried himself, the things that he did, the way that he would get up early in the morning and pray, the way that he would fast, like God being hungry. Crazy, right? But he was willing to show through suffering, through hardship, through hunger, through being tired. It says in the book of John 4 that he got tired after walking a long way, and that's why he sat down at the well with the woman. Like, amazing, right? That God would take on all these hardships, and he did that to show us what he's like, the humility of God, the love of God, the righteous anger of God sometimes. And so everything that Jesus did and said and taught and the way that he researched, I don't know what Christmas means. Does anybody know what the word Christmas means? I actually don't. What is it? Oh, maybe, yeah. So maybe it's a good name. But I'd name it Incarnation Day, if I could. Like the day where God became flesh. Incarnation means becoming flesh. The day where God became flesh. And I want us to think about it that we could still call it Christmas. I'll still say Merry Christmas. The cheesy little title I picked today, Merry Incarnation Day. But I want us to remember the theological importance of this fact that God would reveal himself by becoming one of us and hand-delivering a message of what what it looks like to follow God and who God actually is and what his character is like and what he looks like. When I have my own really hard questions, sometimes I'm reading scripture and I'm like, what? Like, what does this mean? You know what I mean? Like, how can I reconcile this stuff? This truth keeps me holding on. That Jesus reveals to us what God is like. Because you know what? I love Jesus. Like, you can't help but read these Gospels and love Jesus. And then the more you study and the more you know about the cultural stuff that's going on behind what he's doing, the more you love Jesus. This guy is amazing. And if that's who God is, I love God too. Like if that's what God is like, I'll follow him. The other stuff that doesn't always make sense, the other stuff that's hard to reconcile or that gives me doubts, I can hold on to this truth, that difference and historical difference between me and ancient Near East culture. You know what I mean? Like it's just a matter of understanding more, and then suddenly it makes sense. It almost always ends up reconciling. But so I want you to know, like, you've probably heard me say something like this several times if you've been here for a while, that Jesus reveals to us who God is. It's something that truly, vulnerably keeps me holding on to my faith at times when sometimes I doubt. Like, this truth is so central to me that I'm going to keep saying it. And that's why I love Christmas, honestly, more than anything else. I love Christmas because we have these age-old songs and we have these beautiful stories just reminding us of this beautiful truth that Jesus reveals to us what God is like. And he went to such great extents to show us that. Now, I have Zacchaeus tonight. And the reason is that because I started to see in God's nature, like in the very nature of who he is, that he feels compelled to reveal himself to us. It says, John 3:16, he so loved the world that he gave his son, that whoever believes in him would not perish, but have eternal life. There was this thing inside of him that compelled him so strongly with love for the world that he just had to give his son into the world. And so that's from the Father's perspective. And from the Son's perspective, he said, I came so that you could have life and life to the full. And he also says, I came to seek and to save the lost. So the Father had to send his son because it just needed us to reveal himself to us and to draw us towards him and to ask us to be part of this relationship with him. It's something that's deep in his character that compels him. And I was struck when I was studying the last couple of weeks that not only did he come into this planet that we call home, he was so compelled that even after he got here, he didn't just make his dwelling on earth. He actually made his home inside of the homes of people. He actually walked through the physical doors of people and sat at their tables and that got that close to him. The reason it can be uncomfortable for somebody just to come up and knock on your door and walk in is because if they do that at any given moment of any given day, you might have just walked out of the shower, or you might have not washed your dishes, or you might have, if you walked in, amazing, but if you would have walked in this morning, you'd been like, oh man, we need to pray for Josiah, right? Because it's kind of vulnerable to have somebody walk right into your space. And I think the reason that we're kind of losing the art of having dinner with each other is because that's pretty vulnerable too. What choices you make for how you eat or how you prepare the food, or if you're clean enough, or if you smack your lips when you eat. All of it is kind of vulnerable, right? To eat across the table with somebody else in your own space. Well, Jesus did that on purpose. Over and over again, he walked into people's houses and he sat at their tables and he looked them right in the eye and he had these life-changing encounters with people right in their home. So not only did he feel compelled to come to our earth, after he landed on this earth, and he felt now I need to go even deeper. I need to go all the way into their homes. And so I think it's amazing. So that's where the Zacchaeus story ties in, and you can open them up. If not, you can read along with me. I'm going to mute real quick. Is it me or you? Okay, it was me. All right, so in Luke 19, 1 through 10, it says this. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. All the people saw this and began to mutter, this has got he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, Lord, look, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I'll pay back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to them, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. He came to do that. So a little backstory here. Zacchaeus was a straight up villain. Like in any story, he was the villain. He was the rich guy, the powerful guy, the corrupt guy, the guy that was selfish. So that in Israel, I guess it was also like a new republic, new way to do things. But to the Israelites, they were the enemy. They were oppressive. They were under the thumb of Rome. And so Rome would find these people within Israel that understood the language, understood the culture, and knew the families really well. And they would bribe them, pay them enough to kind of turn against their people and become employees of Rome. And they'd be the tax collectors. They wanted people who understood their town pretty well. So they wanted them to be Jewish people. So that meant they were pretty much traitors to the Jewish people, right? So they were the ones that would collect taxes from the Jewish people. Now, they didn't have W-2 forms that they would send in their taxes. They would all have to personally report to the tax collector, who would read a list of all of their assets and take a chunk of all that they owned and give it to Rome. In that process, there was very little. So that was tax collectors. Now, Zacchaeus was the boss of the tax collectors. So there are several tax collectors, and there's the guy on top of the tax collectors who tells the tax collectors what to do. Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector. So there's all the bad guys, and he's the villain on top of the bad guys, right? So Zacchaeus was a bad guy, and it says he was very wealthy. And the reason he's very wealthy is probably because Rome paid that position pretty well, but also because he had total freedom to take from whoever he wanted as much as he wanted. So if you got on Zacchaeus' bad side, even though he's a short little dude, he's a powerful guy, and he can steal from you whatever he wants to. And if he says that you lied to him, you go to jail. And so whatever he says, you have to do. And so you can see how much corruption is possible in a situation like that. And from all appearances, and so when Zacchaeus hears that Jesus is coming to town, the unexpected happens. And something inside of Zacchaeus really, really, really wants to see Jesus. Like, he is determined to see Jesus. There's something in him. You can imagine being the villain in town your whole life. You can imagine feeling the guilt of turning against your own family and all their friends and stealing from people. If anybody's tasted a lot of wealth, you know, like, there's emptiness right behind it. Like, that wealth isn't really gonna make your soul feel alive. And so he's probably feeling all that. And he knows that Jesus is coming to town. Maybe there's hope for some kind of change in the predicament I've gotten myself in. I'll never rebuild my reputation with my friends. Rome doesn't actually really care. Sycamore tree, which is a tree with low branches. One that's easy to climb. And it says that he runs. So you can tell how determined this guy is to meet Jesus, or at least see, it just says to see Jesus. He's determined. There's something in his heart that's like, I'm going to find Jesus. I'm going to see him. And so he runs. And now I'm pretty sure, I didn't verify this, but I know in the prodigal son story that when the father goes out to run to the son, that the commentators say that in that culture back then, that would have been very undignified for a man to run. And so I'm assuming for Zacchaeus to be the same thing. Pretty undignified for this rich, wealthy guy to be running down the street. But he's willing because he's so determined to see Jesus. So he's running down the street, and then he's climbing a tree. Like, this guy who should be on the top of society is stooping to the point where he's climbing a tree to get his eyes on Jesus. There is something in his heart that longs to see Jesus. And Jesus comes around the corner. Zacchaeus predicted correctly what Jesus' path would be, and Jesus sees him, and I believe for change in his life. Jesus sees right past what everybody else in town sees. Everybody else sees the villain, the person who steals from them, who's stolen from them their whole life, the person you should hate because they're a traitor, they're friends with Rome or whatever. And Jesus sees right past that and sees like a guy that's actually eager to change, a guy that's determined to find him. And when he sees that, he points to Zacchaeus up in the tree, says, look, come down immediately. I have to stay at your house today. That have to struck me. That same truth that for God so loved the world that he had to send his son so that we wouldn't die. And Jesus said, I came into this world that you might have life and had to have it abundantly. I had to come. There was something house in town, right? It's going to be a nice house. He's going to get fed well. And he's like, I'm going to your house today. And it wasn't because he wanted the choice meat, right? It wasn't because he wanted to stay in the cushiest bed in town. It was because he saw Zacchaeus was ready to change. And he said, I need to eat at your house today. And everybody ridiculed him. They did this so many times, it's almost funny that like Jesus chose to eat at the people's houses that everybody in town judged, and they're all like, he's at the house of a sinner. He eats and drinks with sinners. It's almost funny how many times that happens in Scripture. Jesus was totally unfazed by this concept of hanging out with sinners. He's like, yeah, that's why I came, right? Like, I am fine with that. I'll associate with anybody. And so he comes and he goes and sits in Zacchaeus' house. And Zacchaeus, attention, he just wanted to see Jesus, and now Jesus is inviting him to host him at his house, which would have, like, that sounds funny to us, but it would have been a very high honor in that culture to be, to invite yourself into somebody else's house means that you want to fellowship with them, you want to associate with them. And so for this highly respected teacher to want to associate with Zacchaeus would have been a very high honor. And so, and he receives that as affirmation, as love, as forgiveness. And in response to that forgiveness, he immediately casts down his idol of money, right? His first thing he does is a pretty bold move. He says, half of everything I own, I'm going to donate to the poor. This guy's life just changed right in that moment, right? Like this guy who's been accumulating wealth from the poor, stealing, unjustly receiving bribes, taking from people who hardly had anything to give because he was hoarding wealth for himself, suddenly meets Jesus and he's transformed and he casts down that idol and says, I'm going to give away half of what I have. And that's probably the rest of what he's got, right? This guy is known in town for being corrupt, so he definitely stole from somebody else. And he's going to pay back 4 times as much. His heart is transformed. He encounters Jesus, and he cannot stay the same. And then Jesus responds. When he says the Son of Man, he's speaking about himself. Basically, I have come to seek and to save the lost. A couple things I want you to get out of this is that determination from Zacchaeus, that he was out to meet Jesus. His heart was set on meeting Jesus. So he was seeking Jesus. Now the other part is that God came from heaven to earth to seek out the lost. And so there's pretty good odds that this guy who's seeking today, that if you're determined to find Jesus, if you're determined to meet with the Lord, if you're determined to find truth, if you're determined for your life to be transformed by God, you will be transformed because he is also seeking you. It's going to work. There's hope. So if you're like, so I'd love for you to ponder the question, like, am I determined to meet with God? And I'm not talking about the first, like, I am talking about the first time. If you haven't met Jesus yet, be like Zacchaeus. Be like, I at least want to see him. I'm going to do everything I can to at least see if this is real. I'm going to study the evidence if I have to, if it's an intellectual battle. I'm going to get around people who know about Jesus. I'm determined to at least see him. Be like Zacchaeus if you've never met Jesus. Every day a day where I could encounter God. To make every day a day like last week where I could hear God's voice through the word. I could just open this thing up and study it and hear God's voice for my life. I can make every day a day where I get closer to Jesus. We should have that determination too, because Jesus came to seek and save the lost, to seek to sort of find us, but then save us. And the salvation process begins right when we receive him and continues all throughout eternity, where he saves us from all the things that we got wrapped up in. So determine, set it in your heart, I'm going to go find Jesus, and it's going to work out because he's going to find you too. I believe that with all my heart. There's this really cool verse in Revelation 3:20 that I think ties it in so well. And it says, this is Jesus after he died, after he rose. This is like kind of a John, the same person who wrote the part about him, the Word becoming flesh and dwelling among us. Later in John's life, he wrote Revelation, and he sees this vision of Jesus, and Jesus says this, "Here I am, I stand with me." See how much this is just who Jesus is? He comes into your house and eats with you, right? Like he did that physically on earth so many times. And then even after going up into heaven, what he wanted to tell us, he's like, I'm standing here, I'm still knocking on your door. And if you open to me, I'm going to come in your house and I'm going to sit across the table and I want to eat with you. And when I encounter you, your life will be transformed. For the first time, and then over and over again. How many times do we eat? Most of us 3 times a day, unless we're in some intermittent fasting thing. Most of us eat 3 times a day. We could, or more, I can eat more than that. Several times a day, we can be encountering Jesus across the table, right? And that's metaphorical. This is it's just who he is. He wants to be in the nitty gritty. He wants to show up unannounced. He wants to come in when the living room's full of laundry. He wants to come in when we're grumpy, when we're in the middle of stuff, when we're going through it, right after we mess up again. He wants to come in and be like, I want to help you. I want to forgive you. I want to walk with you. That's who he is. It's his heart. It's his character. And that's what Christmas is all about. It really is. Incarnation Day, the day we celebrate that Jesus enters in, that God walks right into your house, into your story, sits across from your table, understands you, and wants to hand-deliver a message of who God is. Heart, his character, his love, his truth. Think about the physical door where my address hangs. Like if he's knocking on my door and says, can I come in? Am I like Zacchaeus? It says he received him joyfully. Zacchaeus was so ready for Jesus to come in his house, no matter what it looked like in that moment. He was joyful, like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. Is that your response tonight? Like, yes, Jesus, come in, please, come. I need a transformation. I need hope. I need love. I need my character to start looking like your character. Are you ready? Are you rejoicing when Jesus is knocking on your door? Are you still resistant? Are you hesitant? Are you apathetic? Think about it a little bit. And I would hope that you could kind of make a decision. I'm going to do what it takes to become determined, like Zacchaeus, to meet with Jesus, to make today a day where I have an encounter with the Lord, where I know that he's with me, where I make a point to study his word, to pray, to give everything up to him. All the things that we do in our Christian walk, I'm going to be determined to make Jesus, to invite him into my space today. What would your response be if he actually came and knocked on your door? Would you be impacted by the fact that he wants to spend time with him? God was willing to forgive all of his sins. This guy was a sinner, right? They were right. The town wasn't wrong. This guy was a sinner. They also weren't wrong that he eats with sinners. And Jesus was all right with that. And Zacchaeus knew it, and it transformed his life. And finally, would you be motivated to make some changes in your life if suddenly Jesus shows up, sits at your table, and shows you unconditional love and says, I believe in you? Would you stand up? Jesus didn't even ever bring up his sin, right? Not that he doesn't. He will sometimes. But in this story, he wasn't like, Zacchaeus, if you give half your money to the poor and make up for all your wrongs, I'm going to come eat with you today. He didn't say that. He said, I must eat with you today. Showed him love, and out of response to that love, Zacchaeus was like, okay, I got to make some stuff right all of a sudden. Because it doesn't feel right to be sitting across from Jesus and be living the same way I was. I'm going to change that and make these 3 wrongs right. I'm going to apologize to this person. What is it? I wonder what it is for you. I know that there's stuff for me that if he came and sat right across from me, I'd be like, you know what, Jesus, before we talk, let me make a couple of things right. Not because he would require it before we talk, but because just being in his presence transforms us. So we're going to have some time at our tables to talk about some of these questions. The last one I just asked, what would you change, is super personal. I'm not sure if it's on the questions up there. If it is, like, I always want to tell people you don't have to overshare in this group. There's strangers at your table. Don't feel pressure to share anything you're uncomfortable sharing, but also feel free, a little too deep to share with people you don't know. But I always want to offer the invitation to pray with anybody who would like prayer. I'll be up here, happy, ready to pray for anybody who would like it during this discussion time. But otherwise, enjoy conversation with each other and dive in. This is also, we stopped. Oh wait, are we doing an announcement at the end, Sharon? Okay, so about 8:30 we'll, even 8:25. We're a tiny bit early tonight, so about 8:25 we'll have an announcement.
Hey y'all. Hello. Sorry to interrupt your conversations, but I have a very, very important announcement that Lauren is gonna give.
Oh, thanks. Hi, y'all. I'm Lauren. I think I've met some or most of y'all. I used to come to Young Adults, but now I lead a high school group downstairs. But I wanted to talk to y'all about an opportunity that we can like serve the church as young adults here. So there's still some kids that weren't picked for like the angel tree that the church does, like buying Christmas gifts for them. And so we were kind of all talking, and we think it'd be really cool if we could like step in and fill the gap and like get the last remaining gifts for these kids. And so we're trying to get like 3 outfits and then 10 Lego sets for a bunch of different kids that just need kind of those last minute things added on to the gifts that have already been donated. So we're raising money to get kind of those toys this weekend. So our goal is to raise $300 to get kind of everything that's left. So if you guys want to contribute, you can talk to me or Sharon. My Venmo's up there, but I'm going to be sending out updates of like all the stuff that we get and like what we buy with it, so you guys know that it's like all going to where we say that it's going and things like that. But if you have any questions or like are like, oh, I don't have Venmo, but I'd like to contribute in this way, just like let me know, or Sharon know, or anyone like in leadership here, and we'll be happy.
Yeah, y'all can go now. We're done. What? Oh, you can stay if you want to. Don't forget about this Sunday. So come up to Homestead Falls, be on stage, and let's have a good time.
We'd be playing up till dinner was served. But the feeling that comes back to me is hard to put into words. 'Cause there's miles between lovers, years between friends, and we'll all be together again. 'Cause you're not alone when the porch lights are shining. It's your invitation to a love that's been waiting. So shout, come on in. We're not alone when the porch lights are shining. It's your invitation to a love that's been waiting. Sing it time, won't you come on in? It's the hometown Christmas. Welcome to my California Christmas. Twinkling lights on all the fake palm trees. The only snow that falls is the fake stuff at the mall. Bathing suits in 85 degrees. Welcome to my California Christmas. The skies are blue, the sun is warm and bright. Santa Claus makes the drive, stuck in traffic on the 5. It's a California Christmas Eve. So grab a Christmas tree. I'll meet you down the beach. Plant your mistletoes and stand right next to me. 'Cause that Pacific breeze is gonna set you rock evening filled with broken strings. From out in East LA, down the coast in your Camaro Christmas sleigh. Christmas Put up a tree at your favorite beach with a smoothie. Throw your boat in the car in case there's a Christmas swell. There'll be blue skies and sunshine and seagulls and maybe jacuzzis. Strike up the band, trees in the sand, ring the Christmas bells, yeah. Santa hat and shades are so passé. What a Californian thing to say. De Los Reyes, the Pasadena Rose Parade, the best of West Coast seasonal cliches. Christmas tree, Christmas lights, make the season bright. And I'll be wishing up a California Christmas for you. There's the man near the freeway on ramp. The sign says he's looking for change. The lives we lead as strangers make the whole world feel so strange. I give him a couple green pieces of paper, ex-presidents' faces and names, and he asked me whether cash could ever bring
Oh, okay.
change.
So either
All
Maria or
the
Middlebury or
carols in my ear feel disturbingly inept and insincere. Oh, I'm still looking for Christmas. Tell me what you're looking for Christmas. I get the feeling that I'm on my own. Is there a Christmas star to show me where you are? 'Cause the wise men all forgot the way home. Well, it's halfway through December, the end of a long, weird year. As far back as I can remember, the tension never felt this clear. Is this what my parents felt like? Drinking bitter and sweet from a cup. Maybe this is what it feels like to grow up. You're indifferent, something's changed. Oh, I'm still looking for Christmas. Tell me, how does Christmas work? With our flags unfurled, singing joy to the world when there's so much pain and hurt. Oh, I'm still looking for Christmas. I get the feeling that I'm on my own. Is there a Christmas star that could show me the way home? I hear the Christmas bells ringing, but I'm start right here. I want something real, more than just the feels. It's been a long and lonely year. Oh, I'm still looking for Christmas. I get the feeling that I'm on my Christmas star to show me where you are, 'cause I'm hoping I can find my way home. Christmas time is here. Happiness and cheer. Fun for all the children call their favorite time of year. Snowflakes in the air. Carols everywhere. Olden times and ancient rhymes of love and dreams to share. Sleigh bells in the fireside and joyful memories there. Christmas time is here. We'll be drawing near. Oh, that we could always see such spirit through the years. Sleigh bells in the air. Beauty. Christmas time is here. We'll be dark.